Welcome to the Wellfuel Podcast, your spot for everything gut health, detox, hormones, a healthy home, mold, and everything in between. I'm your host, Isabel Smith. I'm an integrative and functional registered dietitian and the founder of Isabel Smith Nutrition. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Wellfuel Podcast. This is Isabel, and I am your usual host, but I'm here to introduce you to Maeson Tidings, our newest addition to the team. She's an incredible dietitian focusing on gut, skin, oncology. She's going to introduce herself, but she's got such a wealth of knowledge, and we're so excited to have her on the team. So in this podcast, you're going to be introduced to Maeson, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her story. So make sure that you stay tuned, and we can't wait to hear more from Maeson here on the team. Thanks as always for tuning in, and with further ado, here's Maeson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maeson Tidings. I'm the newest practitioner here at Isabel Smith Nutrition. You may have seen me on her stories the past few weeks, but I also wanted to come on here and just formally reintroduce myself and just kind of tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to where I am today. So growing up, I was not a healthy eater by any means. I loved all the sweet treats, cookies, candies, cake, chocolate, ice cream. Some of my personal favorites were things like Junior Mints, Airhead Extreme, Sour Skittles. You name it, I was probably eating it. But I was addicted to sugar, for lack of a better way of putting it. Now, growing up, I was very active. I was a multi-sport athlete. I played soccer, lacrosse, basketball, field hockey, volleyball. So I was always at practices or personal training or at tournaments. So I was very active and good in like the exercise realm, but just nutritionally was not where I should have been because honestly, I didn't know any better, but I also didn't really care either. So it wasn't until my junior year of high school where I discovered the importance of nutrition. One of my best friends, she was very into nutrition and eating well and working out because she herself had struggled with some weight stuff when she was younger and some other health issues. So she kind of turned it around and was very big into, like I said, the exercise, the eating well, good lifestyle practices. And she was super motivating to be around. And she's still one of my best friends to this day. But we were at her house junior year for the Super Bowl party. And we were with family and friends. And it was a great time, good food. And I remember it so clearly because it was like so pivotal in my life looking back. We had just had dessert. I, being myself, had a nice big piece of chocolate cake, which tasted great, by the way. But I just felt terrible after. I felt so sick. My stomach hurt and I just felt like blah. And she saw how uncomfortable I was. And she was like, her with her little bowl of fruit and yogurt and granola, she was like, you should really try to like cut out like refined sugars and like really like scaling back the amount of sugar that you're having. And I was intrigued, but I didn't really know where to start. And this is back when Pinterest was pretty big. She went on Pinterest and found me like a 21-day challenge, like no refined sugar. And obviously this wouldn't work for most people, but me knowing myself, I'm very competitive, especially with myself. And I'm kind of like an all or nothing person. So this was kind of the perfect thing for me to try. And it was like no cake, no candies, no pastries, no ice cream, no chocolate, for 21 days. And I was okay. I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'll start tomorrow and we'll see how this go. You guys, I did not know what I was in for. It was brutal. The first 7 days, especially, were very tough. I was basically having full on sugar withdrawals. I would get like shaky and I would have really bad cravings. And I remember I would text her and I would be like, oh, it's terrible. I really want this or I really want that. And she'd be like, oh, just have a piece of fruit. And I wanted to kill her in that moment. But looking back and knowing what I know now, she was right. Like my blood sugar was low and my blood sugar was so used to being on like these roller coasters from having so much sugar and I would have so much at one time as well. Like just to put it into perspective, would have the family size box of Junior Mints, not just the regular size. But she was right. Like I just needed to have some sort of something, whether it was fruit or just food in general to increase my blood sugar and kind of get back to this more like steady curve. So fast forward to day 14, I could see it getting easier. The cravings weren't as bad. I was starting to kind of see a shift in like what I wanted, and it was really interesting. I remember I would go into like a Target or a CVS and I would make myself like walk up and down the like candy aisles to like desensitize myself, which I'm a little crazy looking back. But yeah, I just saw it get easier and easier and easier as I went on. And crazy enough, when day 21 came around and the challenge was over, I had kind of done a complete 180. I really didn't want things like that anymore. My taste buds had kind of shifted and things were just different. So from then on, I was super, super interested in nutrition and like what I was putting into my body and how it was affecting me, because I was noticing that I was recovering faster from practice. I had more energy throughout the day and at practice after school. I was focusing better in school. I was sleeping better. Some of my GI stuff that I had suffered with was getting a lot better. My skin was looking a lot better, which was a big one for me. So it was super, super interesting to me and kind of paved the way for what I wanted to do in the future, because I knew I wanted to include nutrition into whatever I did in some capacity. So fast forward to college, I committed to University of Florida to play Division I lacrosse. And I actually went in thinking that I wanted to be a dermatologist, interestingly enough. I was super, super interested in skin my whole entire life. And my mom one day was like, you know, you should look into like what a dermatologist is. I think you would be interested in that. So I did. And I was like, oh yeah, that would be like my dream job, like Dr. Pimple Popper for me. Like loved that stuff, loved watching those videos. So that was kind of my plan going into college. I was a health science major and was planning to become a dermatologist. After my freshman year, I sort of realized that I didn't want to be in school for like 12 years. And so then I kind of shifted to more of like the PA route. And that was where I discovered the food science and human nutrition major and figured out what a dietitian was. I had no idea that a registered dietitian even existed. And since I knew that I wanted to include nutrition in some capacity, that kind of felt like the right route to go at that time. And actually the prerequisites lined up with the physician assistant prerequisites really nicely. So I was like, okay, I'll study that undergrad, because that's super interesting to me anyways. So then I made that transition. And then fast forward to COVID. I first got COVID in September of 2020, and it put me through the ringer. I definitely had long COVID. My hair was falling out. I had terrible brain fog. I remember I had 2 instances where I just like completely walked out of a store like without my phone, which like that is just so not like me. My energy was terrible and I knew something was off. And I went to our team doctor who didn't really have great answers for me. And I was like, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be something I can do. And this is where I found like the whole world of functional medicine and functional nutrition. And I was amazed. I knew this was like the future of medicine, what I really, really wanted to do. And so I followed, much like you guys do who listen to us, followed different practitioners in the space, listened to tons and tons of podcasts, read different books, and just really like became a sponge to all like the free info that practitioners put out there. And then I basically ended up doing like a full body multi-phase detox. I worked on like my drainage pathways, supporting my gut, did like a antimicrobial, antiparasitic cleanse. And that was really where I saw so much improvement from my post-COVID symptoms. My hair was no longer falling out. My skin was better. My bowel movements were better. My energy was so much better. I was able to focus on schoolwork for like a very long period of time. And that was when I knew that like this is what I needed to do and this is how I wanted to help people. I also, around this time, made a bunch of different lifestyle shifts. I started filtering my water. I started filtering my air. I started focusing on like clean eating and looking at ingredients really closely and prioritizing organic when possible and grass-fed and all of that kind of stuff. I switched out all of my personal care products and looked at like toxin levels in those and made better alternative swaps. So throughout all of these different things that I did, I slowly started seeing more and more improvement, and then worked to get more and more like optimization of how I was feeling. And it kind of translated into things that I didn't even realize, like that it would do. Like my skin was so much better. My eczema went away. I didn't have any more perioral dermatitis flares. My gut health was so much better. I used to get pretty constipated. So that was so much improved. So it just opened my eyes as to how much our lifestyle and our diet, even furthermore that I already knew, impacts us on a day-to-day basis. And so my plan was to become a registered dietitian, use that for a few years to get my hands-on personal care experience that PAs need to go to PA school, and then eventually practice as a more like functional medicine PA, utilizing my nutrition background and my medicine background to help patients the best way that I could. So I matched into my number one dietetic internship at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. I was so excited about, and I got a very comprehensive clinical training. But knowing the stuff that I knew from kind of deep diving into the functional nutrition world for the last 4 years, I was pretty disappointed in some of the aspects of care. There was definitely things that I loved. I really liked the hospital setting and the acute care setting. I loved the outpatient setting as well. But I just knew that there was more that could be done. And it wasn't necessarily something that I could say in the setting that I was in. And then after the internship, I accepted a role at the hospital, the same one that I was training at. And it was kind of a unique position because I was inpatient 4 days a week. So I was seeing hospitalized patients. I was primarily on our oncology and GI campus. But I would also cross cover on the other campus where it was a lot of like liver patients, cardiac patients, transplant patients. So got a lot of extensive clinical experience through that. And then on Fridays, I was actually in our outpatient nutrition GI clinic. So I was able to support GI patients with a bunch of different diseases, a lot of IBS, a lot of gastroparesis, a lot of reflux, and other disorders. So it was a really good job for me, getting more clinical experience as well as more counseling experience to ultimately get me to my goal of functional nutrition private practice. And then one of my very last rotations of my dietetic internship, I had a plan your own rotation with a functional medicine private practice dietitian, and I was sold. I absolutely loved what she did. I loved her approach. And I knew, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't feel like I need to go back to PA school necessarily. I knew that if I eventually wanted to down the road, I could, and I had the prereqs and all of that kind of stuff. But I was super, super interested because there was so much of what I wanted to do with people, with like running the stool tests and looking at lifestyle and diet and environment and all of these different factors. And dietitians were able to do it. So that's how I kind of fell upon that. And so I then started doing additional functional nutrition trainings on the side through the Integrative and Functional Nutrition Academy. And then I was connected with Isabel through a colleague of mine. So here we are, which I am super, super grateful to be here. Functional nutrition and functional medicine has been such a huge part of my life for the last 5 years. And I cannot wait to help support clients, whether it's with gut health, skin health, hormones, thyroid optimization, weight loss, whatever it is. I am here for you. I'm here to be your resource and your practitioner and your guide. So with that, I will wrap up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Wellfuel Podcast. If you would like to connect with us and hear how we can best assist you and what we can do for you, reach out, book a call. We would love to chat. And as always, thanks again, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
As always, thanks so much for listening to the Wellfuel Podcast. We're so happy to have you. To make sure you don't miss a beat, please subscribe either on Apple or Spotify because we have episodes dropping once or more a week with tons of great content. If you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything we're doing in the business with our clients and new offers and all the things, make sure that you check us out at Isabel Smith Nutrition on Instagram and isabelsmithnutrition.com. See you guys soon.